Are you looking for a powerful way to get your message in front of a highly engaged audience? Hi, everybody. I'm Peter Stockdale with the Spin Market Report. Advertising on the Spin Market Podcast Network puts your business directly into the ears of our active listeners. Our podcasts have over 20,000 total streams in the last 12 months. That includes over 160,000 YouTube impressions and over 150,000 total views on YouTube combined. Whether you're promoting a product, service, or event, reach out to the Spin Market Podcast Network to find out how you can reach an actively engaged audience. So get heard today. Go to www.spinmarket.com to find out more information. Your business, your message, our platform.
It's the Spin Market Report. Here's your host, Peter Stockdale.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? We're back. It's the Spin Market Report, and I'm sitting down with Andrew McCarville. You are a financial advisor. Is that the correct word for it?
That is.
All right. So let's start it off nice and easy. What is a financial advisor? If somebody has never heard of this or doesn't know what you do?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I'd say the biggest thing that we do is we help people put together a plan on getting to retirement, and really we can help with really anything that financially, not just getting to retirement, and anything in that process.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things I saw when I was looking through the Advanced Financial Solutions website, your guys' website, that is, I found that you do business and personal financial advising?
Yes, we do. So when we're looking at planning between business and personal purposes, really it's not a huge difference in how we go about it. The big difference is with personal. I mean, yeah, we're sitting there, we're looking at just that person's individual goals. When we're working with business owners, and we actually have about 40 different businesses in the Fort Dodge and the surrounding areas that we work with, and that whether that's doing their retirement plans, if they have extra money that they're going to invest outside of inside of a corporation or something, we can do investing like that. But really the planning process isn't much different when you're looking at that. It's just the goals of the business versus the goals of the individual.
Okay, all right. That makes a lot of sense. That was something when I was like making some questions like, can you even financially advise a business? It's like, I guess why not, you know?
Yeah. And yeah, I think that's the big thing with it is that I would say most of the business planning that we do is just helping with benefits for businesses, and most specifically setting up those company retirement plans.
Nice. That's really cool, actually. So how does somebody get started in financial advising? Like, how did you get started?
Well, I think my biggest thing, my dad has been in the industry for about 35 years now, and it was something that we'd always kind of had in the back of our minds that, you know, maybe someday I'd want to get into business with him. And the opportunity was a little over 5 years ago now. The opportunity presented itself where he was looking for somebody to come in and kind of start the process of learning under him over time. And that's really what I did for the first couple of years was more so just job shadowed with him, trying to learn as much as I could from him, working on getting all my education and testing requirements out of the way as well. So that was how I got started. It's been a great experience for me to this point. And yeah, I guess our long-term plan is, at some point he will be stepping away, and then I'll be taking over for him. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
So when you let's say you have a meeting with somebody, an individual or a business, what are some of the most common financial challenges that they face? Either, thinking about their retirement in the future, or maybe even just like immediate challenges that they might face.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing with people challenge wise is just having the money to be able to save. I mean, because I think a lot of times, everybody has a limited budget, right? And we completely understand that. And I think how we look at it is you need to pay yourself first. And that when it comes to investing, yeah, you can always find an excuse to spend money here, spend money there. But how I've always looked at it from when I started investing way back when, was, yeah, I'm doing this to pay myself so I have money down the line later. And I think that's a big thing. And I think something that we can do and we can help people with when they are struggling with that is, yeah, we don't just do investments. We help with budgeting. We help with, financial, any sort of financial plan or anything to do with financials. We help with all of that. So it is, everybody's going to have their own challenges, but we have different ways where we can work through those.
One thing I always think is interesting is they'll talk about somebody that's on Social Security as being only having a fixed income. Actually, I think everybody has a fixed income, basically. Chances are, whatever your job is, pretty much whatever 40 hours a week is, that's going to be your fixed income.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about that. And yeah, I mean, everybody's going to have their bills, and you just, I think where people need to realize is that you, and I kind of mentioned it, is with the paying yourself first. No matter what the amount is,
right.
Just start with
habit.
Yeah, start with what you can do, and then from there, hopefully over time, well, maybe you start with putting $25 a month away, and then that becomes comfortable, and then you can bump it up 30, 40, 50, and then down the road, who knows what you could be able to do. And I think that's the important piece.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, like you talk budgeting, you talk kind of like incrementally increasing and just doing what you can to be comfortable with it. I remember when I had my first job, you know, I think everyone's first job, when you get your first paycheck, you're like, what am I going to do with all this money? And then obviously we all find ways to spend it. But like when I had my first job, it was like, oh, I can open a retirement account?
Yep.
Like, I might as well put a couple bucks in there. You never know. And I mean, you do the thing where it's like, well, my employer will match this, so I guess that's what I'll put in here because that's free money, quote unquote. So
Yep.
We'll do that. But then, you know, after a while, you get a raise, and it's like, well, I got comfortable with this smaller amount. If I get a raise, I'll just put some more of that in there, you know. And it's that whole thing where it's like, once you have this in your head of like, I'm going to pay myself for later and budget for now, I always think to myself, like, I could find anything to spend this money on now, but maybe I want to spend it on something else later, you know. And why not have a little bit more to spend more money on something else later, you know, or in theory, you know.
Exactly.
So that's where one thing where I think I was lucky as a youngster having somebody kind of coach me into doing that. And it was like, oh, this actually, I can see the benefit of this now, you know, going 20 plus years of, you know, having a financial advisor or talking to somebody about it. So yeah, I think that's one of those things, start kind of young and kind of get used to having a budget. Cause I mean, honestly, everybody has a budget. Businesses have budget, rich people have budgets, you know, people on fixed income have budgets, you know, everybody has a budget. You have to, otherwise you don't have any money.
Yeah,
you know? So
for sure.
So what do you guys do at Advanced Financial Solution? Like, how do your services differ maybe from other financial advising companies? I know you said like working with people to have, you know, maybe this could be your budget, or if you have like maybe it's not just about a retirement fund, right?
Yeah. So I think the big thing that differentiates us, because what we tell people all the time is when you're looking at products like of different investments that you can get in, every financial service business has very similar products. They're not going to be exactly the same. I mean, if you go across the street, it's going to be different. They're going to use different things than what we're using. But there's a few ways how we try to stand out. Our first thing is service. I mean, we from the very first day that I've started working there, we need to make sure that our clients are getting the level of service that we want, that we would want to get. And if they're not, why would they be doing business with us? So that's kind of our first thing is the service piece. And we focus very strongly on that. The second piece I would talk about that I think really differentiates our firm from a lot of others around, is just the level of education and the designations that we have. So what I mean by that, I personally have my CFP, which stands for Certified Financial Planner. Essentially what that is it's like a master's program in financial planning. It was 6 different classes on all sorts of different topics in the financial industry. And then from there, it was it was like a 8-hour final exam that you had to take to do that. So that whole process took me about 2.5 years to get through that. So I have that. We also have chartered financial consultants, chartered life underwriters in our office. Between myself, Rick, and Scott, the other advisors in our office, we all have designations, and I feel like that is a way that makes our office stand out a little bit. Just all the extra work and extra time that we've put in over the years to get those designations. And I think the last piece I would say is we actually have written succession plan for our business. So basically what that means is our clients know if one of us doesn't wake up tomorrow, they know who's going to be taking care of them. And I think, nice. I mean, and what we tell people all the time is our job is to plan for things, plan for the future. And I think that is something that differentiates us as well, is that we do have that written succession plan, so our clients know who's going to be taking care of them if something were to happen to any of us.
Well, that's a great segue. That's very comforting for an individual that is using you as their financial planner, knowing that you understand how important it is when you're talking to them. You've implemented it within your own organization.
No doubt.
So that's great service and making your customers feel comfortable.
Yeah,
clients.
like who to ask better than a financial advisor what a financial advisor would want, and why not provide that to everyone else?
If he's doing it, it must be okay.
It's a no-brainer, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, that makes me think about like the succession planning. Like I had a job once, I had a retirement with that job. It's very small because I was there for a short amount of time, but it's still just kind of sitting there. And when I left, it's no longer actively managed because that's just kind of how it happens sometimes. So it's just sitting there, and that's what you're trying to avoid. Is just you don't want to leave your you don't want to leave your money in these certain buckets and just be like, well, 40 years we'll take them out of these buckets, when there could have been better buckets to put them in, or different buckets to help you out along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a huge thing too. Because we run into this so many times, and it can get confusing for people too. I mean, if you have, say you have 5-6 jobs over your lifetime, and you have retirement plans everywhere, and if you're not working with somebody, what can easily happen is you have something here, you have something over there, and then you get to that point and you're like, well, where was all my money at? And it just makes things more difficult, I think, if you have all those things. And I think that's a lot of times what we can do is we help people consolidate this stuff and just try to make it easier for people.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, especially if it comes tax time and things like that. It's a big, I don't know, it's like snowballs, if the more different things you have and different areas you're investing in. So what are some common misconceptions people might have about financial planning, or and if they have some, how do you clear them up for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest misconception that people have about working with a financial planner, financial advisor is that you need to have a lot of money to work with somebody like us. And Melanie is our assistant. She does basically everything for us, and our clients know that she's our right and left hand. She said she's been working with us now for, I think, about 12, 13 years. And she said before she started, her biggest thought was, well, I don't have money, so a financial advisor is not going to want to work with me. And there are some out there that have limits on or minimum limits on what they require to work with you. But in our case, that is not what our goal is we want to help anybody that wants help, whether you have $50 a month that you want to start putting into an investment, or you have $1 million. If you're looking for help, we want to help you. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions that we see all the time is people think, well, I don't have enough money. And that's just not the case in our business, at least. If you want help, we want to help you.
I don't know that if I would want to go to a financial advisor that's going to tell me, well, if you don't have assets of $500,000 or whatever.
Yeah, I don't want to manage it.
Yeah. I don't like that vibe.
And there's a lot out there too. And I think that's more so in bigger cities too. I mean, here in Fort Dodge, I don't think that's as common. But yeah, that's what we've always said. And that's kind of the mindset that Rick has always had is is we want to help anybody that wants help, and we don't care if you have. I mean, because a lot of money to one person is not a lot of money to the next person. You know, I mean, somebody can have $1,000 and that can be a lot of money, and then you can have somebody that has $1 million and they can sit there and think, well, I don't have that much money, and it's all relative.
Right.
So I mean, how we look at it is we're going to treat everybody's money the same because their money is important to them.
And what is their goals?
Yeah.
Especially with it, you know, as to how you're going to invest it and manage it, is what is your goal with that money?
No doubt.
Yeah, there's a lot of different criteria you have to think about, you know, being a financial advisor. You know, I mean, you just mentioned a couple of them, like how, you know, age, how aggressive do you want to be with your, I mean, it's all the way up and down the line. And some of that stuff, it's like, from a personal perspective, if I'm going to do it myself, it's like, I guess I don't know what to do. So why not ask somebody, you know, and get the best advice you can. So what steps do you take to ensure your clients are well prepared for retirement? Is there any advice you give people, or anything that when somebody comes in, you're like, these are kind of the benchmarks that we kind of look at? Yeah.
So, I mean, really, and you guys kind of mentioned it earlier, is it's going to come down to people's goals. I mean, that's the first thing we're going to do when we first meet with you is we will sit down and we ask you to gather all of your financial information up front. And from there, we take a look at it. We have financial planning software, and we have people tell us, well, I want to shoot to retire at 65. I'm going to need X amount per month in income. And we have like a specific retirement planning software that shows, well, are the goals that you're looking at, are those going to be realistic? Or if they're not, based off of what you told us, based off of what you save, what changes do we need to make to get you to those goals? And that's why we tell people all the time is yeah, we love having 65-year-olds come in and they have a lot of money saved for retirement and they're looking for help, but you can't change I guess I shouldn't say you can't change. It's difficult to change a 65-year-old's path that they're on. Mm-hmm. Whereas if a 30-year-old comes into us and says, hey, I want to look to retire at 65 and I want this much money amount per month, well, then we have a long time to plan, so we can make those changes and we can make those recommendations on how to get to those goals. So I think that's a big thing. And we do update those plans with clients. So that's how we onboard clients is we run them through that financial planning process. And then we ask to update those every fairly routinely. We'll update those as we get closer, as clients get closer to retirement. We're updating those a lot of times on an annual basis, just because you want to know. I mean, those last few years before you're going to retire, you want to know, hey, am I still on track to be able to retire and have the goal or accomplish the goals that I want to accomplish? And then the last piece I think that we have that we use is we actually have a retirement income planning software that we use as well, that shows and says, well, if you have this amount of assets, how much, what's realistic, and we factor in Social Security and any pensions people might have, and just any other places you may have income coming from, and all that factors in, and it shows us the likelihood of success of you being able to pull that income and continuing to live off of that for the rest of your life.
What I'm finding interesting, you hear the word software coming up all the time.
It is.
And that's what we tell our clients too, is, you know, a lot of the work we do, or just probably the majority of the work we do, there's software. Everything we do, there's a software product that we have to use in order to accomplish what they want to do.
I couldn't imagine trying to do all the calculations on pencil and paper.
Yeah, I mean, it would be difficult for sure. I mean, yeah.
I'm sure that's something your dad probably had to do.
He may have.
Oh, man.
He may have back in the day.
But I think at those times, some of the stuff wasn't quite as complicated as where we are today. Taxes and all those things are much more complicated than what they were even 100 years ago.
Right. And something else I think that's changed quite a bit in the industry over the last 30 years, we'll say, is if you look back to the 70s, 80s, I shouldn't say every, but a lot of companies had pensions. So people weren't jumping around jobs as much as you may see now, because if you stuck at a job, you started there, you'd stick there. basically when you retire, they would keep paying you what you were making for the rest of your life with that pension. Now, I think it got very expensive for these companies to do that, which is why kind of the model that you don't really see pensions is common out there anymore. They are still out there, but just seeing you have the 401k where the company puts the onus on you as the employee to save, and then they'll give you that match in a lot of cases as well. So I think that's a big change that we've seen, and that's where I think planning for using a financial planner has gotten more. The need has gotten higher, I would say, just because it's much more complicated now than what it was way back when.
Well, and you brought that up between the pension and the Social Security. They pretty well knew all along what they were going to be making if they stayed with that company the entire time.
Exactly.
So there wasn't the planning, but going to different jobs, the things that changes, people moving into different houses all the time, the movement of people changes that how to help plan for them as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember looking at the timeline of when did Social Security come out in America, and then pensions, how long have they been around, and then when did the 401k, and then when did Roth start? And I can't believe it was basically 70s on when most of what we call the modern investment tools that people use today are that's basically when they were invented and used is 70s on, and it's I guess I never realized it was that. It's 50 years ago, but it seems like it was just yesterday compared to how long money's been around in general.
And well, I mean, I think the thing is too is we haven't even seen at least with Roth, because that didn't even come out until the late 90s.
Yeah, that blew my mind.
Yeah, so we haven't even seen a full person's life cycle with investing in Roth, and we notice it a lot when we have people come in. A lot of times, older people will not have a lot of Roth because when they started, I mean, if you started a job pre-2000, Roth wasn't even a thing. Yeah. So people just never really changed how they were saving. And I think that's kind of the big thing that I try to push now is Roth, because it's a huge benefit for people long term, because not only you can pull it out tax-free, the money that you put in, but you get all that growth tax-free as well. And I think that's a huge benefit for people.
Absolutely.
And that's why a lot of the schools are actually implementing financial in the high schools, classes and that type of thing, because it's much more complicated than what it was before. Yep. And it wasn't something that they were actually teaching at one time.
And I actually am going to be presenting to a class here within the next few weeks on just the importance of starting to invest at a young age, and we do that frequently as we go into high school classes around the area, and just kind of I think our goal is to, if you can catch just even a couple kids and have them get the idea of get started invested early, it's well worth the time.
And I think another thing that goes with that is the fact that you don't touch your money like you used to. I mean, physically, yes. Touching, where, if you had $100, you're physically touching it. Now you're using a debit card or whatever, or you don't even see your money because it's automatically deposited into your account.
Yeah, it makes you
so there's a different mindset.
Yeah, it's like a disconnect mentally almost or something. That's a good point, honestly. So now that we talked a little bit about some of this stuff, first half of the podcast, let's say somebody was just oh, now I know what a financial advisor is, and there's a whole bunch of things that I maybe don't know a whole lot about. You mentioned possibly starting some people off young, giving them the advice young and saying this might be something good for you to start out with. So what advice would you give somebody if they're thinking now, maybe I want to start saving for my financial future, or maybe what are some of the critical steps for long-term success in this?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a couple things that I would talk about would be getting started with somebody that you trust, an advisor that you trust. Because I mean, really, when it comes down to it, if you're not going to trust the person that you're working with, it's never going to work out long term, because you're always going to have in the back of your head, well, are they doing this for my best interest, or are they doing it for their best interest? And I think that is a very big piece. And then just getting started with somebody that knows what they're doing, really, too. I mean, because to get into the industry, it's not you have to take some tests. So I think like I said, getting with somebody that not only knows the industry, that has done the work to understand the industry, and that will be with you to help guide you through your future.
Yeah, those tests are no jokes. I mean, I came from the accounting world, so I understand what an EA and a CPA test is.
Yep.
And yours is basically like the CPA version of financial advising.
Yeah, I would say the CFP would be exactly that. The financial advisor version of the CFP.
Yeah.
Or CPA.
Yeah, a friend of mine had went into financial advising and took the tests, and that was when he got the job that he had, his only job was to take the tests until he got the test done, and then he could start doing his job. And it took him, like you said, it was like a year and a half for him.
Yep.
That's a lot of studying and a lot of time working on all this stuff and then scheduling out all the tests. And it's very, very rigorous, vetting process for people that are in your position. It's not just some Joe Schmo can run around and say, this is what you should do. It's people that actually have the training to do it.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
All right. So what's without getting too specific, what's a financial mistake people commonly make that you see? The one that comes right to my head is probably no budget. You know?
Yeah. I would say there's two that stand out to me. The first one is not starting early enough to save for retirement. And I've kind of touched on that a couple times here. Is getting started saving at a young age is going to be huge for you. And we run these numbers all the time. And the difference even between starting at 18 years old or 22 years old, as opposed to waiting and starting at 30 or 40, it can make hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of difference over the long term. Just because if you think about it, if you're putting money into an account on a monthly basis, say you put in $100, you get 10% growth on that $100, you have $110. Well, if that keeps growing over time, and 40 years from now, that $100 is now worth $15,000 with just the growth. 10% growth on that $15,000 is going to be a lot more dollar amount wise. So when we are talking to people, you got to remember how compound interest works, and it just kind of keeps snowballing. The more money that you have in these accounts, when you have those big years in the stock market, you see larger dollar amount gains. So I think that's the biggest thing I would say would be just starting as early as you possibly can, and try not to make the excuse of, well, I'll start it tomorrow. I'll start it. And because that's where we see, we hear it all the time is, oh, I'm 25 years old. I don't need to start saving for retirement yet. And it's like, well, no, you don't, but really you should be.
Yeah.
Every day you wait every day you wait, you're costing yourself money long term.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes me think too, like you said, kind of just investing your money and leaving it in there for the long term, maybe not, I don't want to say freaking out if there's a small downturn or something in the market like there was 3-4 years ago or whatever.
2022.
Yep.
But no, that was actually going to be my second point there of common mistake is, and this one we see all the time is people, when the market drops, oh, we need to switch. We need to move out of the investments. It's like, well, no, that's not how we're doing things. Because there's statistics after statistic that shows the people that do best when it comes to investing are the people that put together a plan. You let your money sit there and you don't use it until you need it. If your plan changes, that's one thing. If you're saying, well, I'm going to be doing something differently than what we initially planned, well, then we would look for the right time to move things around. But just because the market dropped 15 or 20%, we're not going to be moving out of investments at that time. And really, that's going to be the worst time to do it because
you're just locking in a loss.
You lock in your loss. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's the same analogy that we use with our clients when they're saying, well, it's not working for me, or it was working and now it's not. Well, maybe we just need to tweak it a little bit, but don't stop.
Yeah.
You have to keep it going on there because that's your momentum, and being steady with it, constantly keeping on top of it is what you need to be, not necessarily making rash decisions just because something happened one day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
doing something's better than doing nothing,
Yeah.
in that sense.
Yep.
So we talked a little bit about like some mistakes people make, how they can avoid them, and we talked about, possibly like how you apply what you do to somebody in their personal finances. So like, how does Advanced Financial Solution, let's say, like build that trust with the clients? Because you said you had to have somebody that you trust. So, maybe I'm just talking maybe personal finances in general. Like, how do you build that rapport with somebody?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because a lot of times, I mean, when we bring in or when new clients come in, they don't know us. They're coming from a referral from a friend of theirs or something like that, or they just look at our website and say, okay, well, this looks good. Well, they don't know anything about us. We could be
Anybody.
yeah. So, I mean, I think that the things that we aim to do really, we try to be very transparent up front with, in our industry, fees are a big thing that people have lots of questions about. We are very transparent up front. This is how, you're going to be paying fees with us. And then we just kind of walk them through our process of, like I mentioned earlier, the financial plan, asking them to gather all of their assets, and then just not being overly pushy, overly aggressive. I mean, I think financial advisors sometimes can get a bad rap of, they're just wanting to sell me something. And at least from our point of view is we're trying to put together a plan that's gonna help you reach your goals. So I would say, that transparency up front, and then just staying in contact with them on a regular basis. And I think over time it takes time to gain people's trust. They're not gonna fully trust us the first day we meet them. Mm-hmm. And we see it with our long-term clients all the time now. We'll call them to talk about something, and they'll just say, yeah, do whatever you think is best. Mm-hmm. And that's the trust that we aim to gain with everybody. And just, I mean, I think that's our goal long term, is to gain that trust from people. And
You mentioned a great word there, as a referral from somebody else. So once you gain the trust of one of your clients, and you have years of experience and proven track record with this person, that we're doing what we think is best for this person, and that person says, now I trust these guys. You have somebody vouching for you on the outside. You don't have to go to them blind. You don't have to go to somebody blindly and say, please invest money. We'll help you do it. You have somebody on the outside, just based on how you've done with them over the years, saying, I trust these people, you should go there. And now you have somebody with an in already. And that's probably one of the greatest parts about like what you just said, is you can actually gain the trust of somebody else, and they can go to their family members or friends or other people they might know and say, this is where I use these people and it works for me. I think it would work for you if you need somebody. That's a great thing to have. Could you share like maybe a success story where, like, again, not being too specific, but something where your guys' services have helped somebody over time? Yeah.
So actually I have a very great example of this that happened just fairly recently within the last year. We had a client, or a couple clients of ours. One of them was retiring, and they came to us, and they had a choice of taking a pension lump sum, or they could take out monthly payments. And we've been working with this couple for some time, and we knew that this man wasn't in the best of health at this time. And so we kind of helped them run the numbers a little bit and say, well, you can take the lump sum here, and then there could potentially be something left for his wife once he passed. Or you can take the monthly income, and from there you're going to get that paid out every month for the rest of your life. Well, unfortunately, about 3 months after we had this conversation, that guy passed away, and they did decide, based off of our recommendations, to take that lump sum. So it was a huge benefit for his spouse, because if not, they would have gotten that 3 months of the pension payout, and then there would have been nothing left. Well, in this case, she has that lump sum left out there now. So I think just seeing examples like that of just advice that we can give people like that, because they may or may not have come up with that decision on their own. But I mean, just helping direct them, knowing the client's situation. I think that's what's important is knowing people as much as you can about people's situations when you help make recommendations.
Well, you put out in front of them, okay, this is what'll happen if you do this, and this is what'll happen if you don't do this, or whatever, and putting those examples out there that possibly they hadn't thought of.
Yeah.
In that, which is exactly what you're saying there, is just showing those examples of, okay, it's your decision, but here's your options.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes I think about, like, if it's a major decision, like, I have a tough time making major decisions sometimes. So if I have, like, a professional next to me that's saying, like you said, these are your options, it's a little bit easier to make a major decision, as opposed to, like you had mentioned, maybe they might not have even made any decision, and it might not have benefited them to not make a decision, you know? So, like, that's a situation where having, you know, the education that you have helps out in this situation. Yeah. It's also got to be, I think it's got to be like a tougher job than a lot of people think. It's not just like, well, we'll put the money in this index fund or blah, blah. You know, it's not like it's just as simple as that. You're thinking about, you know, long-term life, you know, choices for people. It's more than just putting the money somewhere and then letting it sit for 40 years and then pulling it out and we're done.
Yeah. And we tell people all the time too, is our job is to think ahead of where our clients are thinking. Because our clients are thinking more here and now, short term. Our job is to think, well, what obstacles could we run into 10, 15, 20 long term? How can we avoid any pitfalls that we see people maybe fall into?
Well, and the pitfall part is the stuff that you physically see and hear happen give you a better indication of how you can explain that to your clients out there. Say, you know, these are things that we've seen
no doubt
possibly happen. They may not have even ever thought that was a possibility.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge benefit of working with the financial advisor too, is because we've seen a lot of the stuff that people are going to run into. Because, yeah, for a lot of people, saving is easy. I mean, saving can be easy. They know how to save. They know how to get money put away. But doing it in the right place, saving in the right places, or just different ideas that people might not think of that can help enhance. And I think that's the big benefit that we can offer people.
Right.
So your job seems to be focused a lot around, like, not just like helping people retire, but there's this community aspect. You want to help the people within your community or within your network, you know, grow and be comfortable. So let's talk a little bit about, like, community and that kind of thing. So, like, how does do you have community involvement efforts at Advanced Financial Solutions? Like, do you go out and do, I don't know, like any sort of like public speaking, or do you get involved in different things that are going on in the community?
Yeah. So I kind of talked a little bit earlier about the going into some high school classrooms. We generally will do that on an annual basis around the area, and we actually have clients down in the Des Moines area that we go into some of the Des Moines area schools down there as well, and just kind of try to get awareness for these kids that the earlier you start saving, the better off you're going to be. And I think a lot of times is what we see is people don't do it because they don't know. And I think a lot of times too, you know what you're taught. So if your parents weren't saving, then you might not know that you should be starting at 20, 25. And so I think just trying to get that awareness out there, that you should be doing that at a young age is something that we are very passionate about doing, is getting in front of young people and getting them started with what they can afford.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense because, like you said, sometimes it can be kind of easy to save money. You know, it's not always as easy as, you know, for some people as others. And also, like, we like to do what our parents did or what the people around us do because that's all we've ever been exposed to. So, like, let's imagine you go generations of people go back to, like, the 1920s when there was a run on the banks. Now you got somebody putting their money in a shoebox under their bed. Imagine that got perpetuated till now, and, like, that's not going to do you any good nowadays. The shoebox full of money is not what it, you know,
right.
It's 100 years removed. It's not exactly a good saving strategy. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like, making people aware, I think, is, you know, just creating that awareness at a young age even helps out quite a bit.
Yep.
So how about marketing? Do you guys have to do any sort of marketing for your job? I'm assuming you do because it's a business. But.
Yeah. So I would say that is a big thing. And I think the hard part with marketing in general, and you guys can probably tell me much better than that, is just knowing, are your marketing dollars working? Yeah. I mean, that's the hard part. But I think just brand awareness, getting our name out there. One of our big marketing events every year, I guess you would say, we do a big annual client event that seems to be very well liked and attended by our clients. Basically, it's just a night we kind of a client appreciation deal is where we have all of our clients come. We've done it at different places around town here, and we just have a meal for people, live music, stuff like that. That seems to be something that people really like. And I mean, I know we've heard multiple times in the past of non-clients coming up to us and saying, "Hey, I heard from so-and-so, your client, that you did this. That sounds like a really, really nice night."
Well, one other thing, with your type of business, there's a long sales cycle, because you're talking to the kids in school with the hopes that you're educating them and potentially could be one of your clients in the future, but that might be 10 years down the road. And in your world, branding and keeping that name recognition out there constantly is majority of your marketing.
Yeah. Oh, I would definitely agree with that. Is because, and we don't know a lot of time. I mean, sometimes we'll get people come in and say, because we generally ask everybody, well, how'd you hear about us, or where'd you come from? And we don't know where people are coming from a lot of times, but I mean, we've had people come in before saying, I looked at your website and it's something there jumped out to me. Right. Or we've had people, we have a billboard outside of town. I've seen your billboard, and it's not something when you're doing that, it's not something that you're noticing every day as you drive by the billboard. But I think over time, if you're driving by that billboard every day, or anything like that, when you come to think of it, like, oh, I need to start working with the financial advisor. Oh, I need help with something going on financially. Oh, I saw that billboard yes. And it's one of those things where it just kind of slow. I mean, you don't even really know what's going on, but
branding.
Yeah. Branding. Exactly. Yeah. And so,
I love it.
And I think that's an important thing that we do with our clients as well, is understand that how you actually sell and how you get your clients or your customers or whatever, you need to understand that when you're putting your marketing together, because in your world, it's branding. Yep. You're not doing, hey, we got a discount on Roth plans today or anything like that. You can't do that. No. So you've got to do it in a different way. It's not like a bakery that can sell cookies anytime at all. Oh, yours is just once in a while, and once you get them, you want to keep them. Afterwards.
Exactly, and I think that is the biggest thing for us is. Yeah, it's much easier for us to keep a client than to bring on a new one, because I think you mentioned it earlier. It is a long sales process. Even if we have somebody that has money, I mean, it can be some time before somebody actually follows through and pulls the trigger on it. So yeah, I would say we love adding new clients, but at the same time, we want to make sure we're keeping all of our current clients happy as well.
So what about like social media? Does social media play a role in your business? And if so, like, how do you leverage it, maybe for like client engagement or educational purposes?
Yeah. I think social media is one area where we've definitely been lacking over the years. And I know we're starting to get your guys' help on that. But I think that's more of a generational thing. A lot of times is younger people are going to be on social media more. It seems like, so, we have the Facebook page, we have LinkedIn. I mean, we use all the email stuff. But that's definitely an area that we're looking to improve on. But we're in the process of kind of beefing up our social media presence, I guess, a little bit. So it's something that we're working on moving forward, because I do think it is a huge part, and I think it's going to be a very important piece moving forward of marketing, I would say.
How do you stay up to date with the latest financial trends, market shifts, things of that nature? You had mentioned going to, taking classwork for about 2 years to kind of get your certifications. How do you stay on top of that?
Yeah. So we do have annual training that we have to do. A big thing that I try to go to every year, and I have since I've started, we have our annual sales conference as well. It's usually like a 2 or 3 day deal somewhere in the country, and they have all sorts of different training classes that you can choose from. Like, well, do you want to get caught up to date on tax changes? Do you want to get caught up to date on 401k changes? So we do have that, and that's kind of like a crash course, I would say, in continuing education there. The other piece I would say is all the different investment companies that we work with, they have weekly, monthly, just periodic calls of market updates, kind of the outlook on what things are changing, what's going to be happening moving forward. So just staying on top of those calls, hopping on those every now and then, to kind of hear what the different big names in the industry are doing. Then just, reading any articles you can get your hands on, and I would say those are probably the most common ways that I go about staying up to date on any changes or keeping current on what's going on in the industry.
What about like upcoming changes in the financial landscape, like new strategies, things like that? Like, what has changed? I'm going to change the question just a little bit, but like, what has changed since you've started doing this? I know we had talked about, 401ks were invented in like the 80s or 90s, and then the Roth came in like the late 90s or early 2000s, and then so like, what has changed since you started becoming a financial advisor?
There's been a ton that's changed. There's been a big movement across the industry, I would say, to move more towards like the old school way of investing would have been like A-share mutual funds, where you're pulling up or you're paying an upfront sales charge, more of like an advisory where you're paying just an annual fee. That's been a big change. But just something more, even getting a little bit more specific, a big change that not a lot of people are aware of that happened. This was around 2 years ago now, and it has to deal with 529 plans, which are college education plans. So in the past, people were concerned, like, well, what happens if I'm saving in a 529 plan and my child doesn't go to college, or they don't go to a private high school, or they don't go to a trade school, anything like that, the stuff that you can use the 529 money for. Well, that was a big concern for people, and why people may not have been saving in a 529. But I think it was in 2022, the big change that occurred was you're now able to move up to $35,000 out of a 529 plan into a Roth IRA for the child. And to me, it doesn't seem like that it's very widely known, because when we talk about it to people, they're like, oh, I didn't know that. And I think that's a huge thing, because if you have overfunding in a 529 plan, the previous options were, well, you could move it to a different child of yours, you can move it to a grandchild, something down the line. But this, you can kind of keep the money that you had earmarked for the kid, and it sets them up with a tax-free pool of money that if you had $35,000 in a Roth IRA at 25 years old, you'd be looking at a very significant sum of money by the time that person gets to retirement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember hearing about that, how you could possibly transfer a 529 in a different way than what was set up previously. And when I was reading about this, I was like, I didn't even know there was a 529 plan. So this is something where you, being in the industry, staying up to knowledge on all of these different avenues or these vehicles that people can put their money into. You're already light years ahead of somebody like me that's just trying to do this as like a hobbyist, Yeah. Then again, I don't have any kids though, so there's also that aspect. That's why I don't have one. But still, it's one of those things where I think that's the importance of talking to a financial advisor. There's so many moving parts. Just to know what all is out there and what's available to you is tough just for the average person. Yeah. And that's the benefit of talking to somebody like you. Yep. So let's talk about the most rewarding part about your job. What keeps you coming back day after day? What keeps you working hard for these people?
Yeah, to me, this is a pretty simple answer. Just seeing somebody get to the finish line, somebody that's been working for 40 plus years and they finally get to that point where they're able to pull the trigger and retire. You just feel so happy for people and so excited for people that can do that. And a lot of times, I mean, it's people that we've been working with for years and years. And you just, like I said, you can just see how happy and excited they are that they're finally able to stop working. And I mean, just knowing that we may have played a small part in that, I think that's one of the most exciting parts of my job, is when we can see that. And even for younger people, when we're starting to work with younger people, I mean, just a quick example of a client that we're working with that's younger. They started 529 plans for kids a few years back, and they have kids that are maybe at 6 and 4 right now. And already they just kind of started up a systematic monthly deposit into the account. So it's very simple for them, and they're putting so much money in per month, and they already have $10,000-$12,000 saved. And I mean, in a retirement or in a college plan, and they're very excited about it. So just seeing people work towards their goals and get closer towards reaching those, I think that's definitely the best part of my job.
Yeah. I mean, money's all around us. We all see it every single day. We all know how it all impacts each one of us individually. We all have goals, even if we never say them out loud, even if we never put them out into the universe. We all have the same thing. We all want to retire. Nobody wants to work forever.
Yep.
Why wouldn't you want to have somebody helping you out? And I can easily see where that'd be one of the most beneficial things, for you as a person, just as a human being, helping somebody get to that finish line.
Yep.
I mean, that's huge. That's huge.
And I think another thing too is how good of a relationship we build with our clients too. I mean, we say it all the time. I mean, besides our family, our clients are the most important people to us, because I mean, they instill the trust in us to help them reach their goals, and we take that very seriously.
So we're down to the last question here. And it's the last question I always ask everybody, and it's the same question. Can you name a time in your life where marketing impacted you, and maybe you didn't know it until after it was all over with?
Well, I think kind of a funny example, and I was just thinking about this, like how does marketing impact me? And this kind of goes back a ways, and it's not something that you realize it's going on in the time, but it kind of made me laugh, like the $5 footlong from Subway. It's like, I mean, how long ago was that?
Well, it's $6 now, I think.
Yeah. But everybody still remembers the jingle, right?
Yeah.
The $5 footlong.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. It's like, to me, that was a great marketing campaign, is because 15 years later, it's still stuck. Yeah, you hear that, and it's still stuck in your head when you start singing it.
Another good Subway, but every time I go in there and I buy something that's a foot long, I'm just like, this isn't $5.
What's
like,
going on here?
It was burned in my head so hard that's what I still think the foot long should cost.
And when we ask this question, what is one of the favorite things that come up? It's talking about food.
It's almost
some
always
food commercial.
Well,
that's
they do a great job of marketing that to get out there.
I think that's what we need to do is on all the podcasts that we do, we need to do a whole section of just
do a super cut of all of these.
Yeah, I just have. Wouldn't that be a hoot?
That would be fun. It's a lot. It's always a lot of food. It's for sure. Yeah, this has been a really great thing. Again, this is like something that's always interested me, and I don't know if I just don't have the mental capacity or the time or the drive to do what you do, but I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate what all financial advisors do, because I feel like had somebody not pushed me towards one when I was, in my late teens, I wouldn't feel as comfortable as I do now. So, not to say I'm going to retire a millionaire or anything like that, but it's just helps you say, these are my goals. Can you help me with this and make me just feel a little bit more comfortable in my day to day? And it was a great tool for me. So I think you've helped us out quite a bit here, selling what you do, how you do it, why it's important to you and why it's important to everybody else that interacts with you. And this has been a great episode. And I gotta say, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to help, educate us and everyone else that's listening about this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I appreciate you guys having me on and letting me kind of explain how we do things and why it is important to work with somebody. And, so just thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.
If you guys are looking to contact Andrew or anyone at Advanced Financial Solutions, scroll into the descriptions. I'm going to have links down there below. All you got to do is just click on them. and just send them an email, say hi, tell them Spin Market Report sent you. And, again, Andrew, thank you very much for taking time out of your day.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Oh, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. I was so good about the guest links. I forgot about ours. We have links down below. Click on those as well. And let us know how we're doing here on the podcast. Thank you guys very much for this.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, thank
Great.
you.
This podcast is produced by Spin Market and Digital. Located in Fort Dodge, Iowa, Spin Market's highly skilled team can help you increase your market by updating your website, improving SEO, designing advertisements, and producing podcasts that will grab the attention of your market. Contact Spin Market today for all your digital marketing needs at digitalagent@spinmarket.com or call us at 515-302-8026. And to learn more, visit our website at www.spinmarket.com. That's digitalagent@spinmarket.com or 515-302-8026. Or visit our website at www.spinmarket.com.